Afternoon sport. Well, what a remarkable day of Test cricket. One of the most extraordinary I've ever seen in my life. And talk about the spirit of India. Shane Lee, what a day to have your former captain on, a great teammate of yours.
Yeah, and a good mate, Stephen Roger Waugh. Welcome, Tugger, to the show. How are you, buddy?
Good, mate. Excellent.
Mate, Tugger, I remember you've been honing your, we'll talk about your book, but you've been honing your photography and your writing skills for probably 30 years now. And I remember the 96 Cricket World Cup, we were in India, and I think we were in your room, and we looked down, and India can be quite confronting, and there was a beggar on the ground downstairs, and I remember you took the photo just as he looked up, and the despair in his eyes. Remember that?
Yeah, no, I still remember that photo in Calcutta, and it was one of the images sort of sticks with you, and when you look back on it, you see the helplessness of the situation and how tough people live in circumstances in India, particularly if you're living on the streets and begging. So it's very confronting.
Yeah, and there's an amazing parallel. I was on that 96 World Cup covering what you guys were doing over there, and it seems like a world away. But there's an amazing parallel to your book and its title and this series win by India, because if you just scratch the surface and you look at some of the lives and the upbringings of just this team here that we're looking at, you know, Saini's father was a rickshaw driver, died in November, hasn't got back. We look at Washington Sundar's father, had no money but sponsored by a guy next door. Thakur had problems with his weight, and Tendulkar helped him. Natarajan was the son of a loom worker. It's their lives, which if you haven't been to India, you can't quite conceptualise, Steve.
No, that's right, and they're hungry for success, and they'll do anything to make sure that they make the most of their ability and potential. And you saw that with the Indian side in the last couple of tests. It's probably one of the greatest wins by any cricket side in the history of the game. Really, with the whole bowling attack out, plus even some of their second line bowlers not there, and you have two players there who basically came along as to support the batsmen as net bowlers, playing in Test matches and doing well. So huge credit to Ajinkya Rahane and Ravi Shastri for getting the group together and playing like they did, but they just never gave up and they kept fighting and scrapping. And as you said, Tim, a lot of this, that's the way they're brought up. It's a tough life in India for a lot of people, and you've just got to do what you can to make the most of what you've got.
Tugger, tell us about the book. I read that you took over 10,000 photos when you were putting this book together, and you've chosen something like 220 of your best photos. But what's the story behind the book?
It really came from touring India for 30 odd years, and I'd always take my camera with me and sit at the front of the bus and take as many shots as I can, because I'm pretty inquisitive and curious by nature. And India has got so many things to see and do, and that you've never seen before. So I just wanted one day to go out and get amongst it and take photos of kids playing cricket in the alleyways, on the beaches, in the back streets. And 15 years after retiring, or probably more than that, the opportunity came where I knew my presence wouldn't be as big as it was when I was playing. So I had a bit of freedom to move around, and I wanted to try and capture the spirit of cricket through the lens of my camera. So you're right, I took 17,000 photos over 17 days. Wow. Had a great photography coach and a guy called Trent Park, who was actually a really good cricketer in his day, but now he's one of the only Australian ever to be invited to the Magnum Photo Agency in France. So he was an incredible coach. And I was a rookie on tour and tried to soak up as much knowledge as I could, and ended up surprising myself by taking these 220 photos, which ended up in the book.
Yeah, he's a great man, Trent, too. The little question of that. And look, there's no better time to go and grab a copy of this book, www.stevewaugh.com.au. It'll give you a pictorial insight into what India is like. I remember Mike Coward wrote a book once, Cricket in India, Beyond the Bazaar, BAZAAR, and it is quite wild, having been there a lot myself. Steve, what happens to this Australian cricket team? Does Tim Paine stay? Is that getting a bit presumptuous? Some people calling for his head?
Yeah, look, I felt from yesterday position as a captain. Sometimes things don't work out, and you maybe don't think as clearly as you should under the pressure situation. But at the end of the day, I just think our fielding has let us down in the series. We haven't fielded like the Australian sides of the past, and we haven't scored enough runs. I mean, realistically, in Brisbane on that pitch against that bowling attack, we should have got 500, 550 in the first innings and put the game away. So we missed opportunities. Sure, we didn't bowl them out, but I think our bowlers are a bit fatigued. I mean, it's had a lot of bowling, and it's I guess if there was any criticism of Tim, it might have been that we could have mixed it up a bit. I would have liked to see Cameron Green bowl a few more overs, Labuschagne, and even Steve Smith. I'm surprised he didn't bowl his leg spinner. So sometimes you get a bit caught up, and I can understand how he put faith in an attack that's taken over 1,000 Test wickets compared to the opposition, which had 13. I mean, that was an incredible statistic before the start of the game. So that India just, they just almost wanted it more yesterday. You could see that they just wanted to win that game. And even Rahane, when he came out to bat, he showed really good intent, and it was really great leadership. But for our boys, it just didn't work out. But I sort of put the blame at the batsman not scoring enough runs, and the fielding, dropping catches where we don't normally drop those sort of catches.
Tago, I mentioned yesterday on the show, I thought Rahane was an exceptional captain, and it was almost like the whole team relaxed when Kohli went home. Kohli's obviously a fantastic batsman, probably one of the best Indian batsmen of all time, if not the best. But the team really relaxed when he went home. He's brought that team together, hasn't he, Rahane?
Yeah, and there was a difference between captaincy and leadership, and maybe he did relax the boys a bit. They had nothing to lose. I mean, I've had a bit to do with Rahane. I met him on this recent trip with the book, and he sought me out for a bit of guidance and on leadership. I had a good chat to him, and I also spoke to him in Australia. He's a really good style of fellow, a bit more on the Rahul Dravid sort of mould, where he's a quiet achiever, not big on the stand on top of the table and making big speeches, but more one-on-one behind the scenes and working with the players and showing belief. And I think the side, as I say, did relax, and they played incredible cricket for a group of cricketers who really no one expected to win. But I guess the bonus for those guys was that they had a lot less pressure because no one expected them to do that well, so they could go out and play with a bit of freedom. But having said that, it's still a lot harder to do than say.
Yeah, and a lot of people have bagged 2020 saying that it's destroyed elements of Test cricket. Yesterday, plenty were saying that what we saw was actually the benefit of 2020 cricket and the way the world has changed in this game, because everyone and every team now thinks they can chase down anything.
Yeah, they showed no fear, that's for sure. Someone like Washington Sundar, I think the amazing stat was he hadn't played a first-class game since 2017. Here he was playing a test match and just going about it as if it was a 2020 or a 50-over game, the way he relaxing at 22 off 29 balls in a real precious situation. So you're right, in a lot of regards, they don't know or they don't understand or they don't comprehend the pressures that maybe other players put on themselves in Test cricket. The outcome was everything, and maybe for these guys it was, it's just another game of cricket, and let's back ourselves and we can play the ramp shot, we can play a reverse sweep, and we can win this Test match chasing 7 and over. So, times have definitely changed.
Tago, what are you doing with yourself now in retirement, mate? Besides putting books together and taking great photos,
there's no such thing as retirement. I retired from cricket, I guess, but obviously family, 3 kids growing up, but the charity still takes a huge part of my week in life. The Steve Waugh Foundation, we've been doing that for 17 years and still involved in some stuff in India. I'm also part of the Laureus World Sports Academy, so we have charity projects in the Sport for Good Foundation. We've got 140 projects in 40 countries, so all that and a bit of entrepreneurial stuff, and obviously the book and the photo exhibition and the documentary that went with this project. So there's plenty going on, mate.
Yeah, we had a good chat, you and I, at the Sydney Cricket Ground when we just did a soft launch the night that it broadcast part of that documentary. It seemed like it was a real, and you've done so many passions, you've been to India so many times, it sounded like there was a real touch effect. It really affected you, this trip here, because you went inside, you met that little kid, and tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, look, there were so many amazing people we met. This young 3-year-old we met via Instagram, so social media has a huge impact, and that's why India will get better and better, because kids that weren't exposed or seen before now can make themselves known on things like social network. And we found this young 3-year-old boy living outside of Calcutta who was this amazing young talent. So we went and visited him and photographed him, and he got a bit unruly at times because he was only a 3-year-old. So he was biting Trent Park on the leg, and Andre Major, who did the videography, just whacked him with a plastic bat. And so we had a great time. We met people like that. We met a 100-year-old cricketer. We went to the Women's Cricket Academy in Dharamshala, played cricket with a blind academy in Bangalore. The physically challenged cricketers was another incredible experience. So this trip was about getting down and amongst it, playing cricket with the monks in front of the Himalayas. It was a trip that was really great fun, and I think as professional sportsmen, you go to the hotel, to the ground, to the airport, and you sort of long to get out there and be normal and get amongst it. And I could actually do that in this trip, 17 days, and taking photographs for 12 hours a day. It was, what 2 of the greatest weeks of my life.
Tucker, do you sometimes wish that we played rugby? Because as cricketers, we tour India, Sri Lanka and Pakistan. The rugby boys get Argentina and the south of France.
Yeah, well, it's certainly different. I mean, but having said that, I mean, they're great life experiences, and I think you've got to be open to what's out there. And I think early on we sort of had this siege mentality about the subcontinent, and it was, the food was no good. It was going to be tough cricket. The grounds weren't going to suit us, the conditions. But once you get out there and meet the people, you realise they're the same as you. They're just very passionate about their own team winning, and whilst it'd be nice to go to a place like south of France and Argentina, I mean, I guess I wouldn't trade it because I've met so many great people and seen so many amazing things. Going to places I wouldn't have gone if I wasn't a professional cricketer.
Yeah, like the Rumbug Palace in Jaipur. It's there's some extraordinary places, and you could just roll them off. All right, mate. Thanks for coming on, Steve. Go grab a copy of the book. Just finally, this bloke here that we're talking to, Shane Lee, have you got some inside stuff only between us? He came in as a precocious talent, the blonde tips. He had the BMW, no roof on it.
Well, and we had some great times, and it was sort of history making. I think we're the first sets of brothers to play in internationals together, the Waughs and the Lees, and all very different personalities and players. And Fug certainly enjoyed himself on tour and made the most of his opportunities. But I think if he was playing now, he'd certainly be a superstar in T20.
Oh, that's very
He's
nice.
probably already told you that already.
Yeah, I tell about it every day, mate. No, but mate, Tug, I really appreciate you coming to the show, mate. And you were a great guy to play with and a great captain too, mate. So I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.